Before we begin, I've just started a new Dragon Ball podcast called Up on the Lookout. Expect Dragon Ball discussions, guest interviews, as well as retellings of some of my classic what-ifs. Visit the link in the pinned comment below for more.
Strap yourselves in, chums. We're about to go deep for this one. Hey guys, MasakoX here. You might be wondering why we are getting a little salty for this topic, given the title. Well, that's pretty easy. It's because we care. We care about how Dragon Ball makes an impact amongst media outlets and the greater fan and audience bases across the world. I mean, if we didn't care, then we would just say, it is what it is. We want to see Dragon Ball make itself something that everybody can enjoy, and yet also feel like Toriyama is still cool with it, always coming up with new ideas. Then again, there is something that we need to come to terms with as being a Dragon Ball fan. Toriyama isn't entirely smitten with most of the cast. The only guy that he really has a consistently soft spot for is Piccolo. Maybe Goku, of course, because he's the main guy, but Piccolo? He's Toriyama's favourite from what he has said in interviews in the past, and from what we can naturally convey. I mean, you could see the love he got in Z very clearly, and how much satisfaction the creator must have felt and gotten in conveying his path to redemption. Perhaps maybe the writer of episode 119 of Super could have gotten a few pointers from Toriyama. That would have helped improve that episode immensely. Anywho, I digress, but only slightly. You see, Dragon Ball has a lot of characters, and since we create what-ifs here and truly delve deep into what makes these characters who they are, and explore potential avenues as to where they could possibly go if given a different path or circumstances change. But that's not why we're specifically here. We are here right now to talk about why some of these personalities get short shrift, and why sometimes we just feel disappointment, resignation, or even frustration towards a particular character. As much as we like to discuss Dragon Ball in great detail, and as much as we have a certain fondness towards Super for being its own thing and doing its best to modernize the Dragon Ball formula so it can keep going and not get too stale, you guys know all too well that we have some issues with how the franchise has been treating a lot of its characters that don't hail from planet Vegeta, or have something to do with them. It feels as if Super has sort of forgotten its roots, and yet sometimes it shows that it hasn't forgotten its root. It clearly remembers it with those really major deep cuts that take you for a loop, which are nice to see, but do leave us all a little baffled. We really don't know where we are with Super. One moment, we finally get to see Poir remembering he can actually transfigure, and then the next thing, we see Goku and Vegeta being the only capable ones of doing anything. With Goku, that's a bit of a stretch. It's just also confusing. In fact, we recently talked about this quandary with the Future Trunks video, being the main subject matter. In that video, we speculated about the reasons why his return didn't really work that well, despite the best efforts of everybody involved, and why he probably won't be back again in Super, or at least not without some major changes to his character. Future Trunks as we know him, no, he's done. Sadly, he's not the only one to have suffered from weird decisions to their drive and story. You see, at certain points in the show's lore, some of the other characters have experienced, let's just say, notable shifts that the fandom aren't very happy about. And that's really us being generous with our choice of words. We could easily be much harsher, but I'm sure you would rather us be a little bit more measured in our editorials and our presentation. If you've been watching our videos for quite some time, you may already know that we have our varied cuts of beef in the way Goku, Gohan, Goten, Trunks, the human characters, and even Vegeta have been portrayed over the years. What started all of these beefs? Where did this shift take place? Before we get to that, however, we need to get a few things out of the way so that we don't run into these later on, and it has something to do with the title. It is important to note and get out in the open that we do not consider these characters to be ruined beyond repair, as we believe that Dragon Ball can be flexible enough to salvage most of the cast if given the right means to do so. What we're trying to insinuate here with the term is that the original drives and character makeups have been recognisably changed, and what we're left with currently is either nothing like how they were when they debuted, or they are very much different, to which it affects their motives and actions and makes us think, well, that's not how they'd normally react, what's going on? Things can improve though, and with the right writers and the right directors, we can see a tour de force occur, a return to form like we got with Gohan in the Tournament of Power to some extent. What we saw with Roshi and his resolution to better himself, that was a good one, but Like with Roshi, it's possible to go back the other way again if you're privy to the manga. So much for that then. One of the best examples of this twisty fate might be Frieza. Out of all of the characters recently, he has had the most upheaval in terms of what makes him him. He has matured considerably since the end of his first arc. Look at where he is now too. I mean, he totally disappointed us in Resurrection F. That movie has seriously not aged well. It's been 5 years and I can't watch it again. And despite our initial objections of bringing him back again, as he really didn't need to return after the Namek saga at all, and some will say that possibly the whole Mecha Frieza thing was pretty demeaning for his character and legacy, he was pretty much reinvented for the purpose of both the Tournament of Power and the Broly movie, being one of the most actually entertaining elements of both. It's something Haverock and I are very sure about. Frieza has finally grown up. When he blew up planet Vegeta, he was a relative youngling to his father, King Cold, and now, roughly 4 decades later, he has gotten out of that awkward teenage phase and now become an adult in his species, probably. I mean, I'm still not sure how it works. He's now someone much more open to humor and being teased. That is, so long as he likes you. He's still Frieza, remember. He even appreciates the strength of Saiyans now, like his dad. Frieza now feels like a part of the furniture, and that's a good thing. It also begs the question, if Frieza now was seeing Planet Vegeta, and he had the opportunity to blow it up, would he actually do it? Another thing that makes Super appealing to us both is that it has some pretty good character moments in which these people feel like, well, people. You know, instead of guys who just hit each other really hard for our entertainment. Like, there is a persona behind the muscles. And this is apparent especially in the filler arcs. If there is one thing that most of the fandom can relate to, is that some of Super's best character moments came from its downtime. Episode 15 of Super being one of my standouts. I mean, come on, Goku flying with a tractor, that never gets old. And these times are when we see that their relationships have come a long way over the years. Like with Piccolo and Gohan's family, or Krillin and Goku, and especially Krillin and 18. I mean, that moment when she smiles tending to Krillin's wounds like he's just some goofball, that speaks volumes. Despite her desire for money, she is really happy with her lot in life. 18 is total chill. So it's not like everything's a lost cause. Anyway, let's start analysing properly. I mean, it's pretty easy to pinpoint the biggest moment of decline for non-Saiyan characters, and that would be the Cell Saga. With all of the love that we have for this arc, for its overtones, its drama, its culmination for many story threads, this is the moment where the gap between certain groups widened so much that some of the characters in the lesser group have really never recovered from it, and sort of faded away, through no fault of their own. I mean, think about it. There was a moment in the story where Kamikolo, the fusion of Piccolo and Kami, was more powerful than Goku, Vegeta, and Imperfect Cell. If Piccolo, guided by Kami, had gotten the win over Cell, the dynamic between everybody, many of the characters, would have been totally different. You know what? Perhaps that's a what if for later. I'll make a note of that. Let me know if you're interested to see that in the comments. It did leave humans behind though, due to them having no fusions, no Kaioken, no power-ups of their own. But the saddest thing about all of this is that Kamikolo, he didn't really last long. He had one notable fight. One fight! Piccolo, in one moment, managed to get stronger than a Super Saiyan and fight on even terms with Android 17, who was as strong as 18, who absolutely dominated Vegeta, by the way. But once Cell had his fitness shake made of people, well, that was it. That was the last notable fight Piccolo could hope for in Dragon Ball Z. And granted, he had a similar moment in the Namek saga with second form Frieza, so we shouldn't have been all that surprised, really, but we did have hope that this time around, with Kami being in there, being a major part of his character arc, it would stick at least for a little longer, but no. Piccolo was sort of done, and spent most of the rest of the series being the mentor character with no real send-off. We really don't count his brief fights in the Buu saga because they weren't that notable. The only thing that allowed him to stay somehow relevant and be part of the main cast and be constructive is that, as I've said before, Toriyama really likes him. And he can pop up in a mentor role from time to time, and it's still befitting to his character. He exudes that level of coolness to make it work. In an interview Toriyama did alongside Eiichiro Oda, you know, the guy who does that story about pirate kings or something. Yes, I know it's One Piece, I tease. The interviewer asked Toriyama and Oda about their favourite characters. This was Toriyama's response. I believe mine would be Piccolo. He was the first character in my manga where I was like, He has a scary face, but he's so cool. It really is cliche when bad guys turn into good guys, but it just feels great drawing it. So again, yes, it was dumb in Super for Piccolo to be taken out of the Tournament of Power arena in such a bizarre and unfitting way without properly utilizing his gimmicks. But as with many of Super's problems, they are deep-rooted in Z. It's not Super's fault entirely. They're part of the show's makeup and they have been for decades. It was inevitable, sadly. Due to Z's popularity, they are mislabeled by the creative team as sacred character tropes, as they all tend to have the same conclusion. They all have the same issues, and therefore share the same result. The human characters need something to bring them back onto the same playing field, or at least something close enough. We got some of that in the Moro saga, which was nice to see, being given fighters to truly contend with and giving compelling stories. And then let's not forget, Krillin had a power-up before the tournament, which sadly amounted to nothing. Give and take, I guess. Tenshinhan specifically has the very same problems Trunks has, and although he has many cool, unique powers of his own, we haven't really seen him do anything notable with them, in the Tournament of Power specifically, other than show a couple of his powers just for a token thing to say, oh yeah, he does do that, and that was it. Yamcha has baseball, and lately Toyotaro did give him one cool sequence, but other than that, he's become a walking meme. Gohan is another easy example. His failure to step up, coupled with Toriyama's inability to commit to seriousness, has hit this character very hard. That and the fact that Super doesn't want to change the status quo at all for fear of confusing the fan base about who's who. They really do not take their audience seriously. Vegeta is another example of this characteristic of Super. Although getting to see him as a responsible family man is a delight to behold, he is relegated to going through the same tired path of learning to work with Goku over and over and over again. He already had this character development. The ending of the Buu saga clearly established that Goku and Vegeta were now friends. We don't need to see the prince tsundering his way up to the top again. Let's hope that there is more for him in the manga in recent chapters that will get him closer to his end of Z persona. And then there is Goku. What ruined Goku? Was it possibly his return from the other world in the Buu saga? Was it him uncharacteristically threatening Shin? Was it GT turning him back into a kid and Super taking that childish mindset and putting it into an adult character? Was it the ending of Z itself? Well, I think all of the above had something to do with derailing Goku as a character. One of the things that may have done that for our protagonist is his popularity. He is a victim of his own success. Like with most of the character lineup, he has achieved legendary status within the world of anime, having huge followings. He's become a global icon. Sure, most of the Dragon team are icons of their own right, but Goku is on a whole other scale. Vegeta's close, but not quite the same. Goku is a Superman-like icon. There was less concern over how he is as a person, but rather what he does. You know, so long as it looks cool on an action figure, that's all people care about. You just turn a profit and get sales. Don't get us wrong, we like our Dragon Ball merch, I have some right here. But the problem is that certain things changed, and things which were once endearing became something that made us think, well, hang on a minute, that's not really nice for that character, it's not fair. Certain plot points stopped being just a simple yet cute, oh, it's just a Toriyama subversion, and became a more demoralizing chant of, okay, whatever, let's just roll with it. Goku has been dumbed down to appear more down-to-earth and charming, as he was in the original. The difference being that in the original, though, he was growing up, literally not knowing anything. He knew very little about how to act. He had raised himself effectively, so it would be understandable why he'd be a little simple. Now though, as an adult, having gone through so much, having shown to be capable of being a good and very resolute logical leader, there's no excuse. Goku in Super has been written poorly. Even saying he had a flat character arc justifying his behaviour, he is not allowed to actively deal with the consequences of his actions because that was one of the topics of Dragon Ball GT. Dragon Ball GT actually got this right and in quite a big way. Goku and his friends had to face the realization that what they had been doing up to now had not gone unnoticed, and they then had to pay the piper, as it were, and subsequently have their favourite toys taken away from them. With age, I'm starting to appreciate more about GT, but I still don't forgive them for Super 17. These days, Toei is afraid of everything related to GT, without acknowledging that it wasn't really the ideas that ruined the show, but rather how Toei actually got the ideas out into the open. At the end of the day though, none of these characters are truly ruined beyond repair, as I've said. there might be certain types of media related to the series and franchise in which they could thrive and succeed. Trunks in the games? Yeah, there you go. The problem is that anyone other than Goku and Vegeta, and these two have been through their own batch of issues, have very slim chances of getting the attention that they deserve, that they did in the past. That's why we need spin-offs that aren't just game promos and very much feature the same cast that we have in the main thing. The latest arc of the manga has proven that expanding your universe vertically, enhancing what's already there so we remember it, instead of just doing it horizontally and just adding new species and worlds that we don't really care about, can and will work. One thing to note, and the last thought for today, is something that came to light during a conversation that Haverock and I had with Lucia Lobos-Villa, our actor for R&R Trunks. Paraphrasing her words, modern fandom is very hooked on the sense of community, due to the fact that we grew up in the times of VHS tapes. We want to rekindle that feeling from our youth. Nowadays, with the advents of wikis and other things that allow us to re-experience media from our childhood, we are thriving in it. It's like a form of escapism. And we also have to remember that Toriyama and some of the creators behind Dragon Ball are from a different generation before then, and as we know all too well, he just writes on the fly. And as much as we can see a virtue of that type of writing, I myself write like that for most of my what-ifs. After so many years of the franchise being a thing, you just wish that sometimes things could be simpler, and maybe allow some of the characters to move on. So what do you guys think? Do you see a new life for these characters? What kind of future do you see for the franchise itself? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!